that wide zoom of the whole board.
Oh,
just so we
dude,
can get
yeah.
a quick overview of what we're diving in here.
Let's see what we're
if
in
you want
for.
to shift it to like the other screen.
Yeah,
here.
the game screen.
Game screen.
Yeah.
Okay,
There
here
we
we
go.
go.
That's
the big boy
that's
screen.
the
There we go.
one. That's the one.
Holy.
So we got a real life conspiracy board for you here
Dang.
today, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of key
Oh my
players.
God.
Yeah,
different
this is a
groups,
lot.
People, locations, events, all brought to you in a very succinct and chronological order. Hopefully succinct. We'll find out.
Wow,
Yeah,
I'm
stay
excited.
tuned.
So,
Cool.
just for all of those playing along at home, this yellow line here is kind of just our major through line here. And then we've got red is for all of the CIA baddies here.
Yeah.
So you can follow those red arrows. And then we got white is going to be all the different like mad scientist types. And then we've got we got sort of the good guys of the situation. We got auditors, we got whistleblowers, people that are trying to find the truth on all of this chaos that's been going on for the past, what is it, like 70 plus years
Yeah.
of, at least that we know of I mean, we're talking mind control, we're talking torture, we're talking dosing people, we're talking advanced interrogation techniques,
No sleep.
we're talking hookers, we're talking elephants. We got a lot, dude. Well, there's so much to it.
Crazy.
And
I'm
like
so excited for you guys to get to the hookers.
yeah. Oh, we will.
Oh,
Oh,
certainly.
don't you wait.
All right.
Well, where
So
do we start with such a board?
So we start. First let's cover our sources really quickly, just so you guys know. Basically, all the information we're pulling here is either directly from the CIA.gov Freedom of Information Act reading room, which is all publicly available information of declassified, although slightly sanitized documents in a lot of cases, and then Intellipedia, which is basically Wikipedia for the CIA. It's not typically public access, but a lot of these documents were explicitly on Intellipedia before they hit the Freedom of Information Act room. So there you go. Those will be linked above, and then we kind of pulled a little bit of articles from here and there that may or may not be slightly speculative, but we'll not talk about that.
that's okay, dude. We can speculate. Well, that's the thing, because a lot of times things get, documents get lost in some kind of document boating accident or some kind of accidental fire or things like that.
Oh no, I lost all my documents in a series of small fires.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, shout out to FOIA. Shout out to FOIA requests. That's like where we're able to find a lot of this stuff.
Yep. And I'm sure there's plenty of documents that are still highly classified, haven't been released yet, despite multiple and extensive requests on behalf of the public. So yeah, to save you the trouble of reading through these fucking decrepit old pieces of newspaper, we've really parsed out the information here on the board. But of course, those will be linked in the description if you want to check them out as well.
Yeah.
MKUltra.
Yeah.
Right.
Our entry point here is what, 1945, I want to say?
Man, it's crazy just looking at all this. So, yeah, 1977 was when all this stuff started coming out about it. But before then, it was all speculation. And then, there was already movies and different things kind of illustrating what people thought was going on before any of this stuff was officially released. But yeah, so starting at the very top here, we got Operation Paperclip. So if you guys don't know about Operation Paperclip, this is actually where Clippy from Microsoft was originated from.
Seriously? Are you?
No.
Wow.
No. But this is like
Clippy's got some weird ties.
Yeah.
He's got some weird friends,
yeah.
bro.
Ask what Clippy was doing between 1933 and 1945.
Oh, God.
He was like, "Do you need some help with that, mein Führer?"
Oh my god. He's like, "Go away, Clippy."
Oh my god.
Oh shit.
So 1945, 1959.
All right. So if you don't know, 1945 is when World War II, the greatest of all wars, ended. And so basically, it's almost common knowledge at this point that there was a bunch of German scientists. I'm not going to call them all Nazi scientists, but they were German scientists under Nazi occupation.
Yeah, whether voluntarily or not, it's they were part
under
of the
the
party
waving
in
flag.
most cases. Yeah,
they'll do science for anyone, as we found out, because basically, okay, let me just read this. A precursor of the MKUltra program began in 1945 when the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency was established and given direct responsibility for Operation Paperclip, which was a program to recruit former Nazi scientists. Some of these scientists studied torture and brainwashing, and several had just been identified and prosecuted as war criminals during the Nuremberg trials.
right. So who's the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency?
I think we can go down here and follow this conspiracy line here. We got the JIOA here.
The Joya.
They were the intelligence organization directly responsible for Operation Paperclip, an OSS and Army CIC program for recruiting German scientists for U.S. government employment, primarily from 1945 to 1949, and then many were former members and some were former leaders of the Nazi Party. So these guys,
Yeah.
it wasn't just low-ranking whatever grunts. Like, these were like higher ups. They were doing all sorts of weird shit, and we're like, you know what? We can make some use of these guys.
So this was basically just a bunch of military committee people, both from the U.S. and I do believe the U.K. There was a couple of reps in there, but yeah, it was just all these World War II guys, who were officially or unofficially, I should say, organizing this as like a World War II provision, and then the next event we get to kind of establishes them as a more official group, more official branch here.
So as everything happens with the government, once they always have this is a wartime provision, this is a temporary thing, and then like a couple of years later it becomes a very permanent thing.
Oh yeah.
Never trust a temporary government program because they're still around here. So the National Security Act happened in 1947. With the end of World War II, the Joint Chiefs of Staff was officially established under the National Security Act. So the JCS consisted of a chairman, the Chief of Staff of the Army, and the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, which was established as a separate service by the same act. So that was kind of where the Air Force was even
born. Yeah, the National Security Act. Yeah.
Interesting. And the Chief of Naval Operations. So you got the trifecta of Army bros, military bros. You got the commandant of the Marine Corps was to be consulted on matters concerning the Corps, but was not a regular member. So you got a bunch of old white guys who are all members of this.
Yeah, basically Department of Defense guys and just general all around high ups, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So yeah, it was us. We were just like, hey, what's up, Germany?
Right.
And then we went to go get them.
So it seems like the implication here is that some of these guys probably would have been in big trouble had they not been basically saved. They're like, you can come work for us now and then not be executed. And they're like, okay.
Yeah, both on the U.S. side and in the case of World War II, the people who are actually forming this Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency. Right, so they were both guilty of doing some weird and very suspect kind of things, and yeah, they just kind of lucked out by being an established agency by the end of it.
Right.
So, yeah, moving forward.
So this is kind of like the origin of the CIA itself.
Yeah,
just about.
I don't know if it's necessarily the origin of this of the CIA, but this is how this entire timeline began. So with Project Artichoke here, they essentially absorbed a lot of these Nazi scientists who were acquired through Operation Paperclip. So Operation Paperclip is essentially a foundational block upon which the rest of this stuff kind of rests. So they're not directly correlated other than the fact that a lot of scientists were absorbed from Operation Paperclip into Project Artichoke.
Right. Yeah. But basically what I'm getting at here is that the very beginning of the CIA, it's not like they were just, we're just gathering intelligence on what the enemy is doing. They're like, all right, let's go straight to the brainwashing. Like, they did not waste any fucking time getting straight to like the torture techniques, the brainwashing techniques. They're like, sweet.
No time wasted at all. As you can see, we're starting pretty early. This is 51 now?
51. Yeah. Okay, so we got Project Artichoke. And so the primary goal of Project Artichoke was to determine whether a person could be involuntarily made to perform an act of an attempted assassination. The project also studied the effect of isolation, hypnosis, forced addiction to, and subsequent withdrawal from morphine and other chemicals, including LSD, to produce amnesia and other vulnerable states in subjects. Project Artichoke originally began as Project Bluebird. On August 20th, 1951, Alan Dulles ordered Bluebird to be expanded and centralized and renamed it to Project Artichoke, which quickly became a power base for Sidney Gottlieb, who's he's like one of the main players in this whole thing.
Let's take a look. Let's pause it there and take a look what these guys are up to, because it is quite interesting. I found. Yeah, follow that.
It's crazy.
That red connection.
Oh
there.
yeah. Before we go there, So they were doing experiments with special interrogation techniques on captured prisoners overseas at black sites. So this was like a very just like post World War II. They're like, let's start doing some weird shit on political prisoners, prisoners of war, and all that kind of stuff. And so now we got this big connection here to all of the big CIA baddies. You're gonna get familiar with them. Should we just like do the run through the gambit of these guys?
Yeah, let's start with Alan at the top. So yeah, this guy was the former deputy director of the CIA. He's essentially the one who approved the entire program, starting with Project Artichoke, moving on up.
Right, man. So this guy's got some. He's got some notches in his belt. He's got the coup in Iran, the coup in Guatemala, and he was fired by Kennedy in 1961 after the Bay of Pigs incident.
Yeah, all of which he took a nice big fall for and a lot of public criticism.
And then he was appointed to the Warren Commission in 1963 by Lyndon Johnson.
After being fired by Kennedy. So Kennedy fired him, and then he's like...
Yeah, well, yeah. And then, JFK got fired from being alive.
Yeah, so if you're unaware, the Warren Commission was a commission that President Lyndon Baines Johnson put together to investigate the assassination of Kennedy.
That's one of the most hack government investigations of all time, too, by the way.
What's the scoop on the Warren Commission?
It's just really, it was just faulty every step of the way. This like super like inexperienced doctor was commissioned to do the autopsy. A bunch of stuff went missing. A bunch of people involved just didn't do their jobs. Like, and it's just like the most half-assed thing ever. Like, even by like cop standard, police standards, it's just like they did a horrible job on purpose, clearly, you know. But
for the goddamn president.
For the president,
that's nuts, dude.
That's a classic demoralization technique, though, is just to make people's jobs as difficult or as like meaningless as you possibly can. Just become an obstruction.
That's crazy, dude. So he was fired by Kennedy and then gets rehired to look at Kennedy's brains.
Yes,
basically.
Yes,
like that's crazy. Like that's one of those things where it seems like you should maybe recuse yourself from that that situation.
But he was criticized for that too, for it being a conflict of interest.
Yeah, definitely. Right, like if you got personal beef with Kennedy, and then you're in charge of examining like what happened after he died, like that's pretty wild. I didn't know that.
Yep.
And then so we've got the Offices of Scientific Intelligence, OSI, is basically the department of the CIA that's in charge of a lot of science shit.
Yeah, so that's primarily Alan Dulles and our boy Sidney Gottlieb over here. So he's the spy master. Yeah,
the spy master, hired by Alan Dulles, joined the CIA. July 13th, 1951. He headed the CIA's assassination attempts and mind control programs in the 1950s and 60s. Oh, he's a liaison to Lockheed Corporation, later Lockheed Martin.
Yeah,
if you're familiar with. They just did their little pride march with the Lockheed Martin, the LGBT bombs.
That's insane. Just like the conflict of like ideas there.
They literally made the meme.
Bomb company?
Yeah, they make bombs.
Yeah, they're
weapons and munition.
Weapons, yeah.
They had like a big parade.
Obviously makes sense for the CIA to have an inside guy at one of the biggest weapons manufacturers in the world. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, have no fear. Our weapons manufacturers are very inclusive. And he worked at the Food and Drug Administration, where he developed tests to measure and presence of drugs in the human body.
Yeah.
Thanks, asshole.
Yep. So he started his career early. So he actually started at the FDA. That was like one of his earliest undertakings, really. Yeah, went through a couple of different positions before finally ending up at the CIA.
And that's this guy on the left here, by the way. That's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the guy
Yes.
on the right. Yeah, it's this guy right here.
They all kind of have the same vibe. And then we've got Frank Olson. So he was a U.S. Army Chemical Corps. Helped develop bioweapons for the U.S. during World War II. He helped develop aerosol anthrax along former Nazi scientists acquired by U.S. through Operation Paperclip.
Jesus.
And then he oversaw Operation Big Switch, which is what we're getting to in a little bit, which involves the repatriation of Korean War POWs who were believed to be brainwashed. And so this guy's got, he's behind a lot of stuff. But he kind
What
of
a charming mug. Look at
yeah.
that. Look at that.
No, he was cool, man. Before he fell off, you know.
I know, right?
Oh my God.
So he attempted to resign from the Special Operatives Committee in 1953, and then the death of Frank Olson.
we
spoiler
can
alert.
skip that till later. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of looks
well,
like a closeted Nazi.
Everybody on this goddamn episode is a closeted enthusiast of a certain Reich. Yes.
He's like,
right.
I don't support them per se. I just enjoy the culture.
Yeah, no. Every one of these fools, you'll see, they all have a connection to it.
It's about the history. It's not about the flag.
I like their cars.
It's about heritage.
Yeah, it's about
Oh no, that's horrible.
I just like Beethoven.
All right. So, Project. Oh, wait, did you get to Operation Big Switch right here? Did you skip over
Oh, I
that
skipped
right
Big
there?
Switch. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, wait,
so,
did I skip anything else? Okay. So yeah, so after Project Artichoke, we got Operation Big Switch. So basically, from what I'm gathering here, this was when the Korean War was starting. After so
no,
this
this
like
is when the Korean War was ending.
Or,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
right. So or after it ended, because like the Korean War pretty much started like very shortly after World War II ended.
Yes.
And then so there was a ton of POWs. So let's see. Replying to UNC Commander General Mark W. Clark's request for the exchange of sick and wounded prisoners, North Korean leader Kim Il-sung and PVA Commander Peng Dae-hwa, I don't know. And then basically someone sum this up for me.
So essentially, North Korea replied to the United Nations Command's request to exchange prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention. So North Korea replied. They said, "Yeah, we're down. Cool." And then China was like, "Hey, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Except we should pick a neutral state somewhere in between, just so everybody's prisoners get sent there, and then they get repatriated under a neutral authority." Right. But China was very adamant that their people get repatriated back to China specifically.
Right.
They didn't want them to have a choice in the matter. But the UNC was like, no, we're going to repatriate people as they see fit. So if they want to stay here in the United States or wherever it was they were being held prisoner, and if they want to go back to their home country, either is a valid option.
So China was more in the sense of like, we just want to put. Were they saying we just want to put all these POWs in a country that's not China, not Korea, and not the U.S.?
Yeah. So,
like a Switzerland of sorts?
Yeah, a Switzerland to oversee the repatriation of the prisoners of war, a neutral party, essentially. But China adamantly wanted that neutral party, to give them all their people.
Right.
So,
Damn. It's like...
So they went back and forth, and they negotiated for a while and eventually settled. They came to a conclusion on, getting everybody's prisoners of war back to the proper country of origin.
Right. So China was like, well, let's see if your POWs really love you, you got to let them go, and then they'll come back.
Oh my God.
Well, so that's crazy. So basically, you had a bunch of Chinese and Korean POWs who kind of lucked out then, right? In a sense of getting to stay in the U.S.
From what I gather, yeah. So they were, from what I understand, pardoned more or less, and essentially in being repatriated.
Wow.
So I can imagine there was a number of KVA and PVA soldiers who ended up staying in the United States and just being introduced into the American public.
Wow.
So that's kind of crazy. Just war criminals, supposedly war criminals or prisoners of war.
Right. But the big takeaway from Operation Big Switch is that some of these people came back and they were like, "Yo, these guys look pretty brainwashed to me," or like that was kind of the rumor that was going around.
That had been a rumor since World War II, more or less, and Project Artichoke sort of began as a response to rumors of brainwashing through North Korea and China. Right. So that is what really kicked it off. And then Operation Big Switch is primarily negotiations between these, three parties about exchange of prisoners of war. So this is happening March 28th, 1953 through around April 7th, 1953. So just like a couple of weeks period, like 9-10 days for the negotiations to take place. And then not even a week later, we have MKUltra being approved.
Right. The titular MKUltra. So it really didn't take a whole lot of time for them to. It basically went from a very down low project where they're like, all right, we're gonna have these Nazi scientists and people, we're gonna like secretly brainwash just a couple people but it became a wide, expansive thing where they're, it got to the point where they're hiring different subcontractors and different people at different universities.
Yep.
Harvard's a big one. University of Oklahoma that we're going to get to in a second. But where it's like, oh no, this was just a college experiment, but it's like, who paid for these experiments? It was the CIA. Through one way or another.
And we'll get into the more specifics of how and where that happened later down. But yeah, basically Sidney Gottlieb, the spy master, man, this guy, he was like, Project Artichoke, that's not enough oversight for me. So he proposed Project MKUltra. And though they are not explicitly being stated anywhere as being correlated to Operation Big Switch and Operation Little Switch, which follows immediately after, I have a sneaking suspicion that his understanding that all these prisoners of war who were believed to be brainwashed or traumatized or tortured in some way were all about to be repatriated, he saw that as an opportunity to expand his oversight and his research into the North Korean and Chinese brainwashing methods that had been, rumored and discussed.